What's good, y'all? Track Kennedy back with a brand new beat breakdown. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys what went into this beat I created last year around the time Post Malone's Rockstar track featuring 21 Savage dropped. I really like the vibe of that record, so I want to just create my own version of a 21 Savage featuring Post Malone type record, just to see what that kind of would sound like in my head. The bank that I used for this is actually an unreleased bank that we were working on. The concept was just kind of mix trap sounds with a horror movie soundtrack, so there was a lot of cool kind of elements and different stuff in there, but we just kind of got caught up with other projects and never finished it. Let me know in the comments if this is something you guys would actually be interested in and like to see released. Please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps us a ton. Without further talking though, let's go ahead and get into this beat. So for this particular beat, I want to just go ahead and start with the hook section, and then I want to go ahead and move to the verses, and I'll just go ahead and break down everything sound by sound, try to make it as easy as possible. And the actual track, it really is not as complicated as it looks, as you guys will see in a second. It's just everything's kind of separated by channel more so than I usually do. So it looks a little bit like, whoa, why is there so many channels or patterns being used? But it's really not that crazy. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into it. So on the very first pattern, I just have this little atmospheric kind of drone sound in here. And here's what that sounds like by itself. So that just kind of helped set a tone for the track, in my opinion. It had that kind of spooky type feel, but those little bounces in it made it kind of melodic at the same time. So I thought that was kind of a cool bridge between 21 Savage and Post Malone. So the next thing I added to it was an actual second atmospheric pad, just because I thought these layered well. This one had like a slightly different feel to it, but still had a little bit of movement and kind of helped provide a little bit more edginess to the track and make it a little bit more horror influenced, if you will. And here's what it sounds like real quick. And here's what they sound like combined. So I thought that was just a really cool and interesting texture, something you don't really hear in any kind of beats, in my opinion. So the very next thing I wanted to add to this was this bell sound. So the actual preset that I used for the bell sound is just an antique music box, and here's what it sounds like by itself. Just a really simple top end pattern accented by some different root notes, just kind of make it a little bit different. And then when you take this sound and you combine it with the other two elements, you just start to get some a little bit more complex than your average trap track. So here's what that sounds like now. So I thought that sounded pretty good, but I wanted to continue to layer. So the next thing I added in there was this little ARP, and here's what that sounds like. So two notes, really simple, but I just thought it was a cool kind of texture in there. It would work well. So when you layer that together, here's what you get. So from there, I wanted to start adding more melodic pieces. So I added this Frozen Planet pad. And the reason I chose this pad is just because it doesn't have like a super smooth, pretty type sound. It just sounds very gritty and damaged and very unpolished, which I thought would fit that kind of horror theme of the track. So here's what it sounds like by itself, just holding one chord. And when you combine it with everything else, this is what you have. So at this point, I had figured that this little section that I created would be great for the verse and just kind of like the backbone for the track and the bass for the track. So the next thing I wanted to do was start adding more of my melodic pieces. So the very first thing I added was this little creepy chip tune type pluck. And if you guys listen to it, it has a melodic type tone, but still that horror feel. So the idea was to use this sound as kind of like a transition piece, use it in the verse to kind of switch up the verse and make it a little bit more melodic, just because I thought it wouldn't be too distracting, like you could still rap over this and wouldn't sound weird. And then I could also use it in the hook to kind of play off as a different melody and use different stuff to stack and accent this melody, just because I thought it sounded good. So how it sounds right now is it starts off with like this little simple pattern that we built, and then you see pattern 7 come in, and then pattern 6 and pattern 8 finish off the hook. So let's go ahead and just take a listen to what this little pluck sounds like combined with everything else real quick. So that's the melodic piece I was telling you about. It starts to kind of get a little bit more melodic with that pluck. And then when you get to over here is where we start stacking. So pattern 6 is the actual pattern. It's going to differentiate for the hook or kind of change up the melody a little bit. And this is just a little drum type sound that I found. It just had a cool ambient feel to it, and it wasn't super kind of full melodic, so it fit the theme of the track. And here's what this sounds like. So let me go ahead and just play this little last section of the verse, and then you can hear how it changes up for the hook. So I thought that just started to give it more of that melodic Post Malone type groove and something I could hear him on, but I wanted to continue to layer. So the next thing I did was I took pattern 7 and I copied and pasted it to this next little pluck sound. And here's what it sounds like by itself real quick. And all I did was I took pattern 7 down 1 octave, and then I extended the second note just to fill in that little gap. And I just thought this kind of reminded me of like a guitar string almost. So again, it kind of works with that Post Malone type sound. So when you add everything together that comes through for the hook, this is what you end up with. So pretty simple, but just those layers really add up to give you a lot more complex sound. So let's go ahead and jump into the next section. I'll start showing you guys how I got the grooves for the drums and kind of how I started to program all of that. So with most tracks that I do, once I have kind of instruments down that I like, I'll just start filling each 2 steps on a hi-hat, and I'll just go into the piano roll, hit Alt and Q, and just kind of find templates in here that kind of fit or just kind of give me a groove that I like. And this will just help to move the notes slightly off the grid so it's not really as robotic. And I'm not positive which one I used for this. Doesn't really save the actual preset name, but it's 100% directly from here, so you guys can just kind of look around, find ones you like or whatever. And then from there, I just add a couple of 3rd note and 6th note kind of rolls. Nothing really too complicated. You guys probably don't know how to do, but here's what it sounds like by itself. And then I added this little second hi-hat, just kind of as like a little accent piece, just to almost kind of accentuate the groove and make it a little bit different. And when you combine these both with the track, this is what you end up with. So for the snares, as you guys can see, really simple, just the typical kind of trap snare. The only difference is that I took one snare instead of repeating this one with the pattern. I just added a little second snare in there just for a different kind of texture and a little bit of variety, and use this kind of snare that's a little bit shorter and has a little bit less top end frequency as kind of the accent snare in between the main ones. And then I also have a couple of tambourine patterns in here. Let me just find those real quick, show you guys. Here's what the first one sounds like. And this just kind of plays throughout the track. And obviously there's some effects on that. Let me just show you guys real quick. There's just a heavy reverb on here. So turn up the decay, turn up the wetness, the size is all the way up. And then I have a gross beat just with a tremolo slow on it setting, and then just a simple EQ. And then there's also a second tambourine, which sounds like this. This one's a little bit kind of weirder. It's reversed, but it's still all the same effects. And here's what this sounds like. So the way it kind of fades out, has that long tail, reminded me of kind of like a horror type movie. So again, fit the theme, and I thought it would just kind of sound cool in there. And then when you combine the tambourines in there, this is what you get. And then the kick, again, really simple, just two patterns. One is slightly more empty, and the second one is slightly more busy, just to kind of give it a little bit of variety. And then from there, just kind of finish the track off. There's two things left. The 808, which is right here. And actually, I don't even think pattern 15 was used. I think this was just kind of like a second pattern that I had in here. The actual main 808 pattern is on 19. So here's what it actually sounds like. So I felt like this kind of quicker 808 just kind of almost gave it like an action movie type feel, like there was some kind of suspense or some building. So I just thought it fit well in there, and when you combine it with everything, that's what you get. And then basically the final touch to this was just this little effects horror hit on the one, just to kind of bring some energy to that drop when it drops into the hook. So it's very kind of slight right there, but here's what it sounds like by itself. And then if you listen for it, it's right here. Let me go ahead and play that section real quick. So that pretty much covers most of the beat. I'm going to go ahead and just play it from the beginning one more time. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys learned something new. Until next time, studiosounds.com.